All right, let's get to this conversation now. Basic Education Minister Siviwe Gwarube has officially launched the Safe Schools app. This is aimed at eradicating pit toilets. The number of children who've died while using such facilities, well, we can count those figures and they're not impressive at all. The Minister joining us now for more on this particular discussion, as well as the department's ambitions to achieve more maths distinctions in 2024 compared to 2023. And this is the matric class of 2024. So let's get the discussion underway. Minister, good afternoon to you and thank you for your time. Let's start with the app. This is an important initiative aimed at eradicating pit toilets. How will it work?
Thank you. Good evening, and to your viewers. As soon as I came into office a couple of months ago, in one of my stakeholder meetings, I indicated to Vodacom that I'd met who do some work with us, that one of the problems that we have when it comes to the issue of pit toilets is the reliability of data. So we know that an audit was done in 2018, and we had that data that said just under 4,000 pit toilets were in South Africa. But my problem always has been that we may eradicate that backlog, but we will not always have real live data that shows us where pit toilets maybe were not captured in that audit, or even if they weren't present then, they may have become present over time. Yeah. And so this is an important, I think, empowering tool for not only just the departments, the provincial departments, but also for teachers, parents, community members, concerned citizens, learners themselves. A very easy to use app that Vodacom has developed and donated to the Department of Basic Education that allows citizens to be able to log issues with us. Of course, it's starting with pit toilets, but we have a view that we would want to develop a platform that would even allow people to, say, in a year's time, be able to log, for instance, when food hasn't been delivered at a school, or where textbooks have not been delivered at school, because what it does is that information is directly fed to the Department of Basic Education. On the click of a button, I will be able to have a dashboard that shows me where the numbers are going down, where the heat map is, where the problems are, and it gives me at least also a quicker response time to say to Province X, we have a problem here, these toilets have not been moving, what is the plan? And so I think it serves that dual purpose: one, putting power back into communities; number two, also allowing the departments to have access to real life data that is often looked at and will be checked on a daily basis.
Yeah. Michael Gwarube is the name that will forever be etched in our memories, our collective memories as a country, because I think he was the first child to die as a direct result of falling into a pit latrine. Very, very tragic circumstances there. There's a target, Minister, of March 2025. Are you going to meet that target? And keep in mind that as much as we make reference to Michael Gwarube, we don't want any more of that happening.
Absolutely, Xoli. Michael Gwarube, Vigelam, Langalam Viki, these are names that, as you say, will forever be etched in our memories, because it cannot be that 30 years into our democracy, there are children who are still dying in pit toilets. So I'm working and doing everything in my power to be able to meet that deadline of the 31st of March 2025, of clearing the backlog that was identified in 2018. But Xoli, I want to take it a step forward. I don't just want to clear that backlog that was identified then. I want us to be able to be a responsive department where there are pit toilets that prop up, that we are able to go and quickly and swiftly resolve the issue. Because I can easily come and say one day, when we have met the deadline and we have cleared the backlog, that we've cleared the backlog, but then, a child may tragically fall into a pit toilet again, and the question will be asked, we thought that there were no more toilets that exist. But having this kind of technological intervention allows us to consistently be aware of inappropriate infrastructures that exist in our provinces. And so for me, I am determined to do everything in my power to eradicate that backlog. But as I say, I want to take it a step further. I want this to be a powerful tool in the hands of a teacher, a principal, to be able to communicate directly with the Department of Education to say, here we have a problem. In Kanduli or in Alfred Nzo district, this is the school, this is the municipality. So then I can also hold my counterparts in the provinces accountable by saying we've received at least no less than 20 reports of pit toilets in your province. I need people to go there and see for themselves and report back on what we are doing to eradicate them. So for me, this is not only just eradicating that backlog, but it's future-proofing the system so that schools are places of safety and dignity, not just for learners, but also for educators.
Absolutely. And you've touched on just some of the parts of what your statement in conjunction with Vodacom was saying, the elements of safety, dignity. But there's a third element, and that is what I want to use to segue to my next topic, because you're saying it also has to do with improved learning environments for all learners. And this is a perfect segue for me, because for you to achieve those environments that are conducive for learners to produce results, which is part of what you are aiming at this year, and the understanding is that you are going to achieve more maths distinctions. Where or what are you basing that on? And is that indeed a guarantee that the class of 2024 is indeed going to produce more maths distinctions?
Well, first of all, I think the importance, why that would be celebrated as a milestone, number one, is that it's important. It's important that STEM subjects, which are science, technology, mathematics, are really prioritized in South Africa. We know that these are scarce skills, and very few of our learners, we don't, and even this year, when we present the matric results, I will be doing so next year in a very different way, where we want to delve deep into the quality of education and less about just the numbers. And so it's important that we delve into those numbers and see, firstly, how many maths and science distinctions we have, because these are people who are going to be responding to the demands of industry, where industry has said there's a gap. We need learners who are able to specialize in maths and science subjects so that we can be able to really make a dent in that unemployment statistic. So we are very proud of the 2024 class of matric, because remember, they were in grade 9 when COVID-19 hit. And so there has been a number of challenges that these learners have faced, but we have seen an uptick in the subjects of maths and science. We have also seen an interesting trend where girls are outperforming boys in school, which again is also a milestone, as you will recall, that for a long time it was difficult for South Africa to get young girls in particular to take up these subjects. And so we are seeing some interesting trends around the maths in particular, and maths and science marks. Of course, we can only really know for sure once the results are done and marked and evaluated by Umalusi, but we have every reason to believe that we will see a marked improvement. Yeah. And as I say, it's important to me that we don't just talk about the numbers of matric learners that have gone through the system, but we also talk about the quality. And for a long time, I think we haven't always emphasized the quality of the pass and where learners end up, because we are not just a social department. We are an economic department, an economic lever for the country. So we have to produce learners that are going to go into industry and are going to be able to really, be able to make a living for themselves. And so we're excited about that. I'm excited also, because we are wrapping up marking this week. The last couple of papers are being marked tomorrow and the next day. And again, a huge milestone for the system before the data capturing happens and the standardization by Umalusi starts.
Yeah. Well, Minister, you were not going to escape this interview without me posing to you the all-important question around the Bella Act. And I want to link it exactly to what you are saying, quality education or quality results. For children to be able to get that, and particularly the marginalized, or should we say the previously disadvantaged, they have to gain access to these schools where, if you agree with me that solidarity and your political home, the Democratic Alliance, are standing in the way of that by challenging Section 5 of the Bella Act. Do you agree or disagree?
I disagree, and I'll tell you why. The conversation in South Africa about the Bella Act has unfortunately been, characterized by very polarizing views, Oli. The reality here is that the Bella Act is going to be implemented, and it's going to be implemented in its entirety. The only difference here is about how then do we stagger the implementation so that we can have regulations in place that can give effect to each and every section of the act. The negotiations that are going on within the GNU, that is within the purview of the president. On my side, I am committed to making sure that we implement Bella, particularly those sections that have not been postponed for commencement. There are some good aspects to this bill and to this act, only things like making grade R compulsory. And I believe that if we start to really enforcing and really focusing on the foundation phase, things like matric results will take care of themselves. So I disagree that there is at the very least, I won't speak for other organizations, but I think that I can boldly say that there's, at least in my political party, there's no view or desire to block access for particularly poor Black learners. I think that would be a complete mistake. The poor Black learners have had the rough end of the stick in South Africa in terms of the short end of the stick, in terms of the fact that even though access has always been provided, sitting at 98% access, quality hasn't always been the case. And so I also want to assure South Africans that no SGB can ever deny access to a child on the basis of race or language, because our constitution prohibits such. So the provisions of the Bella Act really, they speak to the modalities of how that is done, or what are the steps that must be followed when one says we want to introduce an additional language into a school. And that's where the regulations of the minister come in, and that's where I would come in. But again, we'll be led by the president and the outcome of those negotiations. But on our side, we've already started the work of implementing the Bella Bill, the Bella Act, and I will continue to do so, because ultimately my commitment is to the 13.5 million learners who are in the system and who really deserve a fair shot.
All right. I have less than a minute left, Minister, but I've got to put to you the question. Do you have any regrets, given the comments of the president and his deputy, about your initiative to take these sections of the Bella Act to NEDLAC? What forced you to do that? Very briefly.
I'm glad you asked that last question. What forced me to do that? What forced us to do that was that Solidarity, the trade union, invoked Section 77 of the Labor Relations Act, citing me as the Minister of Education and the President as the respondents. And they took us through a statutory process that is at NEDLAC, that they are empowered to as a trade union. That's what forced me to be part of that process. And so I have no regrets, because how else would I have responded to a statutory obligation when I said I take an oath to uphold the law? Both the presidency and I were represented in that process. And really what the outcome of that NEDLAC process is simply to say recommendations will be made to the president around the commencement of the act and certain provisions of it, not whether or not the act will be implemented, not whether or not the act must be changed. That's not what NEDLAC is there for. And I couldn't say I can't participate in this NEDLAC process. That the law expects me to be a respondent. So is the president, by the way, which he was represented. And so the recommendations have been made, and ultimately the ball rests within the president, because that's his purview. That is his purview to accept recommendations or not, or simply to say this is how commencement must happen.
Would you like to still keep your job?
Sorry?
Would you like to keep your job still?
Certainly, I have a lot to do, Oli. The sector has a lot of challenges. I have a lot to do, and I'm excited about getting stuck in. Things like today really spur me on because I think innovation, energy, which all I have, really are the things that are going to really see us improving education outcomes in the country. I certainly want to keep my job, and I certainly want to keep doing it because it's absolutely important.
Siviwe Gwarube, Minister of Basic Education, thank you very much for your time this afternoon.
Thank you.